Welcome to the Renegade Yogi Podcast Experience. Join myself, Zorananda, and this episode's guest as we explore yoga in the modern world. Prepare yourself as we will experience yoga like never before. Welcome everybody to the Renegade Yogi Podcast Experience. My name is Zorananda, and today I have with me Katherine O'Shea. She is an animal communication specialist, and I'm really excited to speak with her, and she'll say hi right away for a second here. I just want to say I've had many animals in my life, and this topic has just been a part of my life, kind of unbeknownst to me even knowing it. And so I'm really excited to have someone who specializes in this to actually speak on the nuance of being able to communicate with your familiar and what it means to develop that relationship and that level of communication. So thank you, Katherine, for coming on. Say hello, and
Hi.
maybe just give a second to explain to people kind of like who you are and how you got into this line of work that you do.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on. Hello, everybody. It's so beautiful to connect to each of you. And I think this is a really important thing. And the more that I share about kind of what I do, which is actually, I think we'll probably find that I came upon stepping into this work. It'll sound very familiar to a lot of you. I think it's like, oh yeah, when I was a kid, I remember having those experiences and this is what happened. And for me, it was something that as I healed my physical self, it just stepped forward so strongly. And it was just, I had this people around me telling me like, you need to be doing this, otherwise I probably wouldn't even be sitting here talking to you. So I think it's important to talk about this connection, and we call it a gift, which it is, but I really believe that we all have it on whatever level we need to in the moment, and that we can grow and cultivate and connect even deeper to that. And the thing that's so beautiful about our connection to our familiars and our animals and just animals in general is on earth is like, they just have this way of connecting, right? They're connecting through frequency and vibration. They're in the moment. They're in this unconditional love and service. It's so amazing. And I know that we feel that, and I know that we know that level is alive and real because I talk to so many people who just have that connection to their animal companion. It's like when you saw your animal and you saw this animal and you knew it needed to come be with you and that you had this special connection with it. I mean, it's such a beautiful story and it is unique to each person, but it's also so common in a connection that so many people feel. And diving deeper in that connection, which is what I facilitate people to do, is go deeper in that connection. To me, that's what the animal communication is all about. What I'm doing is I'm connecting. For me, it's on the soul level or the heart level, that level of like, information and energy also, but information, messages, it's that quantum entanglement that we all have. And I'm just tapping into a piece of it that comes forward through whatever message needs to be offered through this being, through this spirit, through this love and connection. And what that does for people, even just to hear their message from their loved one, it's amazing. It can shift the entire way that they experience their connection. It's kind of like when you have the window and it's a little dirty and then you just keep like wiping off the layers of it, till you are like, wow, I'm experiencing this connection so much, so differently. And because we're in our human experience, how we communicate with people and other things that are not our familiars and our animal companions is, very three-dimensional also. But our animals, I don't want to say are like we own them, but our as in like the oneness of this connection we have with the animals is so powerful that it can bring us to that other level so quickly. And I really feel like that's the service they offer. That's what they want to do for us.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think there's like a normalized sense of it that I do believe most people know that they connect and they communicate to say their own pets in a way where they may not just have the proper definition for what's happening, right? And that's why it may sound weird to think about like communicating to them telepathically, or that their animal understands something inherently that for whatever reason we just kind of operate on this hierarchy that because we're a human and they're an animal, that their level of comprehension isn't really at a level that maybe our comprehension is. And what I found in my own like experiences of having family pets and stuff like that is their level of comprehension is on a really at a stage or in a state that we just don't have the faculties to really understand, right? Because we're used to and we're developed in operating through language that
Right.
we think that their intelligence is lesser in some way because they're not operating in a language. But they have their own language and they have their own way of actually displaying their intelligence. And I think for the most part, where we think we're telepathic, it's their telepathic nature and like the power of their faculties that gets through to us, because when we develop a really strong kinship with an animal and we create that emotional bond, that there's this okayness and an openness for that telepathy to come through. And I had this one experience with a cat that my brother and I had when we were living in an apartment together, where I was just sitting on the couch. I like just smoked a joint, so maybe that helped. And I was just like petting my cat, and I was looking at him, and in my mind I was just like, wow, Bodhi, like you're such a good cat, like you're so amazing. And in my mind I suddenly hear, stop stroking me. And then he like twitched my hand off of him, and I looked at him, and then he started licking the spot that I touched. And I was just like, oh my God, he totally just like kicked me off of him and told me like, and even the word like stroking, like that's not a word I would have used. I would have used like petting or touching, right? So the fact that a word came up that I would never have used was striking to me. And then that was one of like the first most powerful experience that I had in like my animal friend communicating to me. And so that's what I kind of wanted to ask you is like, is it in that kind of similar level of communication, or like what do you experience or what do you go through in communicating with, say, like a client of yours who says that like, my animal passed away, or my animal's like sick or something, or, I think my animal is trying to communicate to me or communicate something to me. Can you help me in that regard?
Yeah. So you want to know what my experience is with it?
Yeah.
I loved your experience. Thanks for sharing that. So sometimes I do audibly hear it like that. Yeah. Sometimes they're saying like, one of the first things I hear is they usually, I hear and see a number, and often it's like how old they are or how long they've been with the person, or how old they were when they got with them, or how the person was. Like sometimes I have to figure it out, but I see things in my, like I get images. They show me things. Like sometimes they'll show me like a blanket they love, or like one time I had someone reach out to me. This happens every week actually, for people whose animals are not, who have gotten out of their, um, they're not with them. They ran off, or they went on their own adventure, or they were guided.
Yeah.
They're lost. So they're like, oh, I lost my dog, can you help me find him? And sometimes they'll show me like where they are, like it's a dirty dirt a place of dirt, or they're in someone's house, or they're at a vineyard, or they're in the woods, or they'll show me. So I'll see images, and they like to show me different toys and just different things, mostly to connect to the people, that like, yes, this is me connecting with you because this is this and this and this. Or a place that they love to go, or they'll show me something they love to do, or they'll show me like a food that the human really loves to eat. Or another way is, I hear them. So I'll hear things in a different way, right? Like the way that you heard that. It's very direct, but it's different than your mind thinking it.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes I think we can hear our own thoughts, or and then the other way is they actually like to use my mouth, and they like to use my voice, and they just share their message that way. So it's really like being channeled. And that's like a very interesting experience. And kind of like what you said, there's words that come out of my mouth that I actually don't even know what they mean. And I'm like, is that a word? And the human's like, yeah, that's a word. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that word. Or a place, I'm mildly educated geographically, but there's there's places I don't know about, and they'll share that place, or they'll say and give me a nickname that they get called, or show me flowers that are special, or I just receive information in all those different ways. And sometimes I get a feeling also. It's all the ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I think that speaks to like what I was saying a little bit earlier about their level of intelligence, and what their capabilities are as like a being in the dimension that they're in, right? Like I don't know if you've ever read The Law of One, the raw material, or if you've ever heard about that.
I haven't read it. No.
So there's a significant portion where Ra talks about the different densities that make up like the galaxy that we're in, or the solar system, and it's tied to the rainbow, or like the scale of music, where there's like 1 to 7, and then an octave beyond that, where the first density is all of like your minerals and your rocks and water and just like kind of inanimate objects. And then your second density is plant life, all the way up to animal life. So like the animal life is the end of the spectrum of second density, that is on the border of coming into third density, where we are, like humans, right? And that's animals that we've domesticated are animals that we're helping bridge into third density, right? So we're helping them become human, right, in some way. And so I think in their level of the density that they're in, because they are interacting with humans, and because they're getting a glimpse of the next stage of their evolution, that they receive like energy from that can give them those kind of abilities, right? That their way of being able to speak and communicate. And I think now, because of the internet and because of people sharing all sorts of videos, you see it. Like there's animals that like totally say things, right? Like there's cats that like say I love you, and there's dogs that like, and like And so to me, I've really wanted to keep an open mind to developing that for myself. And even with my dog now, with my dog Rupert, um, he's just like highly intelligent, right? He's like super emotional, and he understands like full phrases from me. And to the point, like I've been kind of experimenting with the possibility of a telepathic communication with him, where I'll just look at him and I'll just be like, we'll be staring at each other. And in my mind, I'll just like say, do you want to go for a walk? And I just like see him like turn his head as soon as I say it. And then like, I'll just keep staring at him and I'll say it again, like louder in my head. And then he'll just like start spinning around and then go to where the leash is. And, that is where I find that, like that journey for him of like, you know, potentially in his next life becoming human or something, right? So maybe you've experienced that, or, you know, kind of like formulating a question in my mind of like, have you possibly had the experience where you've seen like clients whose animals have passed away, that maybe they were like ready to become human, or there was just like this kind of like energy around them of like a transition into something greater, which may be a tricky question to answer, but you know, let's see how it goes.
Okay, cool. um well, first I just want to acknowledge like just I just want to share my understanding. I really appreciate what you shared. It's really beautiful. And yeah, the way that I kind of understand it from just diving into it and doing as much of it as possible is so animals, they don't have the same like pollution that we have as humans, right? But with our higher way of communicating or whatever, our existence, we have the opportunity to create things differently and be in the reality in a different way. Animals communicate through frequency and vibration. This is my experience. So when you're in your energy field and in your informational field, saying inside the frequency and vibration of like, let's go for a walk, well, yeah, he's going to receive that. The same way why they know we're sad, or they know we're excited, or they know 5 minutes before we get home that we're going to get home, and say, oh, well, they know what time we come home. Well, okay, well, maybe your dog tells time, but mostly they're sensing the frequency and vibration of the day in some way, right? So they communicate in this way on the master level. And we might also, if we had everything else stripped down, right? If this was the way that we had to connect and communicate. For example, like, have you ever gotten a phone call from someone you were just thinking about?
Yes. Yeah, many times.
Or you call someone out of all the minutes and all the days and all the people that you're connected to and know, you think of that person and the phone rings and they call you. So it's that level. We do have that ability to communicate in that level. This is how I think. But they're like masters at it, you know. But this is how they would survive this. I mean, they have their senses, right? Their heightened senses of smell and hearing and everything. But they know the weather. They always say, if something's happening with the weather, watch the animals, because they can read and communicate through the frequency and vibration of everything. So this is why when two animals meet, they have that whole experience. Also, like, they're communicating and they're releasing and they're rallying and they're figuring out who's gonna do what, and you know, that's kind of a different thing. But I also got information that this is also how they can detect seizures and stuff, is through the frequency and vibration. and how they can, yeah, maybe they smell the cancer, but they also can detect the frequency, because cancer carries a certain frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So they know that. And this is also why sometimes you can say a word that doesn't make sense, but if you say it in a way that embodies the frequency, that you say, you want to go for a walk? If you say something different in that way, they might get a little confused and sort of have that response and be like, well, I think you're saying this, but your energy is still saying the thing that you're not, that's not coming out of your mouth, but with your energy, you're saying it. So I don't know if that gets cloudy, but I also think I've met some animals who have been human before, and they took another step in their journey, and they came back as an animal to learn some things and experience things. And the thing that the domesticated animals, when you embody and come into life as a domesticated animal, I feel like that can be chosen. That is a path on earth. So when you're a domesticated animal, you have a different opportunity. You don't have to like kill for your food. You don't have to, you have this different opportunity to bring service. And this is what I think, brings in the virtue and kind of helps you, brings in the wisdom and the learning that helps you like go on your path. So it's like they get to just love someone unconditionally, which is like ding, 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 ding. They get to be in that moment, in that presence, and in just offer that love. And sometimes, what they're here to teach us, their love is unconditional. So sometimes even when we think they're being naughty, or they're like doing something that doesn't jive with us, it's actually like, really, that's also their service. It's because they're usually trying to show or teach you something, like to help you develop patience or whatever you need on your path. And this is what I've discovered, and it's so amazing to me when you really think about it. It's like, it's really, really heart touching. And I do think also, my personal belief is that souls find each other too, because I've done so many readings where the souls have been connected before in a different lifetime. Like, maybe you have with your dog before, or maybe, and so when you meet someone, have you ever met someone and you just like got along with them so well, you felt like you knew them forever, but it was actually like 5 minutes?
Oh yeah. I actually I went on a date last night, and it was someone I had met like years ago, and it was like we saw each other yesterday. It was like
Yeah.
really surreal, and um yeah, so yeah, like that
So that can happen too. Yeah.
yeah.
That, it's you can believe it however you want to believe it. It can be like soul recognition. It can be like your, you remembering, or that soul memory coming up, that good feeling of the positive, experience you had with them. It could also be that like the frequency and vibration and the information that you've created together in a lifetime comes up, when you meet again, that field opens, and you have that feeling, and you connect to that information. So there's lots of ways to look at it, but it's really amazing. So there's some animals that are like domesticated. They're not into being, they're like, I don't know how to be a cat. Like, I've never done this before. I'm not really that happy about it. Please help me. Like, so they just like, their behavior is like, help, because they're like, I don't know I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to be this, or they have things to learn. So it comes up in their lifetime, just like for us. But I do think that they do have the way that they communicate and connect is just amazing. And I think that's the most profound thing that they bring through the work that I'm very honored to do. I think that's often what comes through and connects to people, is that connection, that way of being that's so special. And I do think we all have the ability to connect that way, but we have so many other things going on.
Your volume just went up quite a bit. Do you want to just speak for a second? And
Sure.
yeah, I don't know what it is. Something here.
Did I get too close to the microphone, maybe?
Oh, maybe. You want to try
Sorry, I got excited.
That's okay. I can turn it down on my end here.
How's that? Is that better? Or is that too loud? We can also.
That's better. Yeah.
That's better. Okay.
Yeah. So there's something that you said that I think is really important. It's the belief part, right? Because for whatever reason, people can't help but scrutinize this ability, right? So like this experience of having a pet or an animal communicate to you in a way that is unbeknownst to what we think is our nature of communication, right? Of sound entering our ear, our brain processing it, and then being able to conceptualize what it is that we've heard and then to communicate out of our mouth, right? That's like the most basic level of what, we all as humans are operating on. And what I find is that the power that we have is this ability to apply belief so that our experience of that connection with the animal or with our pet it allows it to be unique to us, right? So then like people outside of us, it doesn't matter if they believe it or not, right? It's how strongly within you believe that you have this, special connection with your animal. And I think that's what really helps allow the animal to communicate to you more, right? And so when I look back at my experience with my cat Bodhi or my childhood cat Comet, that now it's just like easier and easier to have that experience with my dog. And it's interesting because my childhood cat Comet, my communication from him would actually come through dreams. And
that's really common, actually.
Yeah, like the most surreal one that I had was I think I was like maybe 21. I like just moved back into my parents' house from living with my brother, and I was going back to university. And I have this dream that my cat comes up to me, and it's interesting because I was a child in my dream in front of my parents' house playing with like some other kids, and my cat just like comes out of nowhere and he comes up to me and he looks at me and he's like, "I'm gonna die in 2 years," and I'm like, "What?" And I just like woke up, and then he's like sleeping at the foot of my bed, and I was like, "Wow, that's super weird." And 2 years later, he died. And he died in my arms. And he had like kidney failure just because my parents fed him, like the fancy feast and kibble and all that garbage. But he lived till he was like 19. And then after he passed away, I have another dream that I like walk into my parents' bedroom and I open the closet. There's like this space back in their closet that he would always sleep in. And he was there, and he was like hiding, and he looks up to me, and he's like, "I don't want to go. Like, I don't want to go yet." And I'm like, "It's okay, man. Like, it's okay. You're ready. You're ready to do it. Like, I'm here. Just, you can go." And he looked at me, and he's like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah, you're totally ready. I love you. Just, you can go." And he's like, "Okay." And he looked up, and I watched like his spirit just like go and leave. And then I woke up and I was like, yeah, that's it. He's gone. And I haven't had a dream with him since, you know? And I think it's really important to catalog that stuff, you know? And that's part of that belief system of knowing that our familiars and our pets and animals in general are so powerful, and you know their level of communication with us is on a level that we need to like use our imagination, and we have to like stretch our boundaries of you know what's possible, because um, we can end up having amazing experiences just like that, you know, just through your dreams. And um, yeah, so could you do you have any stories of like kind of communications like that, or something that maybe sticks out in your memory of um, you know, a client that you worked with that kind of got closure or had, you know, some kind of like healing experience from, you know, the communication that came through with you working with them?
Yeah. Um, Thank you for sharing that. That's really beautiful. You know, a lot of people have those kinds of experiences, actually. And I think maybe I'm a safe place for, you know, people come to me for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm the crazy one who's like, yeah, this is what I do. For me, I could just hear them when I was a child. I just heard them and I could see the spirits of them. And so I I didn't have such a subtle experience. But I also, a lot of people I've worked with will tell me that they'll dream about my dog will come to them in a dream and tell them things. Yeah, he's very special. But um, when I was in meditation one day, I was in a relationship where we had two dogs, and then we decided to go our separate ways, but we kept the dogs together and they weren't with me. And one day I was sitting there in meditation and my dog came to me. And this is when I started to realize that like I really need to be doing this and not just like hide it, you know, just not because I thought people were going to think I'm crazy or I care about that, but just because I wanted to serve with that ability. You know, it's like, well, if I'm receiving this, maybe, and it helps me, maybe it can help someone else. So he came to me and he said, I want to come live with you. I'm ready. I want to be on this journey. I want to change my name. I want this and this and this. And I'm also okay where I am if you're not ready for that. But this is what I want to come and tell you. And I was like completely shocked. And then a few days later, I got a text from my previous partner being like, will you take the dogs for a weekend? And I said, I'll take, you know, this one. And he came and then he just stayed with me. And it was all good. It was all, you know, kosher and everything. But um, yeah, so that was my experience, like, of that brought me a lot of closure because I really didn't think I had the ability, or my landlord was going to do this or that, or I wasn't even allowed to have dogs, and and then it just happened because he came to me and was like, I want this to happen, and it opened my heart, and I was like, okay, possibilities, here we go. I'm just going to let this happen if it could happen. I didn't think about it too much and it just happened. A lot of people have dreams about their animals, and you know what I think sometimes is really unique is the information that they can give them about let me there's so many examples. I'm trying to think of what is the best to share for you all. um One thing is kind of cool that comes up pretty often actually is they will describe like a book that someone has on their shelf and tell them to turn to a certain page, or tell them to look in a book, or tell them to find an item that's blah 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 blah, and they will, and they'll find something that like a message, or they'll find an old piece of paper that had da 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 written down that somehow for them connects all of this and brings that closure to them. um they also like will describe how they were honored, how the human honored them after they transitioned, and that they really liked it, and um or give them ideas on how they can connect to them, like wearing a certain thing that they can connect to, or hanging a hummingbird glass thing in the window, and somehow that's like super significant to them and their connection to their dog, and I would have no idea about that. And I think that all brings closure. Yeah, and even the information they can give about their transition, about like, yeah, I was held and you were with me, and I wasn't afraid, and all these different things that they can share that can help people actually have the closure. And then the thing is, because of the uniqueness of our connection with our animals, what they bring to us, right? What we've been talking about. And because we're so human and we communicate in the other ways too, I feel like a big thing that happens for people, even if it was such a beautiful relationship and everything was amazing, is this guilt and stuff can set in, because they're human. Our minds don't know, like, did they have everything they needed? I didn't get the confirmation that I did the right thing, or I fed them the right food, or da 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 da. And I think that a lot of times, when they hear the messages, they can actually like let go of some of that, because it's like the communication that they need to hear. Or it's interesting, people can carry around that guilt for like decades, and it can really affect how they love themselves, how they respond to themselves, how they interact with others, what ideas and mindsets they start collecting about themselves as this or that or this. That guilt can, that's a low vibrational message, so it can affect people. And once that goes, and I've had my own experience with that, once that leaves, it's like, wow, now I feel, I didn't even know that was there, but now that it's gone, it's like, wow. And I think when we learn that we can connect to that love that they have anytime, that they don't have to be physically embodied next to us, even though that's a different experience, right? That we actually have that ability to connect to them all the time, um, then that's what's going to help us heal that. Uh, that is not really absent. I don't know if that's what you were asking me, but that's what came through.
No, that's a good point. And I think because we have a taboo relationship with death in general, and our view of loss is just immediately surrounded by sorrow and mourning, that that can overshadow the transition that's occurring, right?
Yeah, it's
And
very sacred, isn't it? I mean, it's so sacred, I think, to
yeah,
transition and leave your body or whatever.
yeah, and I think it's just because of the inherent beliefs that we have of the fear of death, and the great mystery of where someone goes if they go anywhere, right? And especially if people are like atheistic in a sense of their belief of death, where there's just like nothing that happens, and that the like the sudden lack of life and the deterioration of this body, the morbidity of it is appalling, right? And for me, what happened in my early 20s is I read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and that really helped me understand how to view and how to believe the transition of life, and that when a consciousness sheds its body and it's in a kind of like a limbo state of transition, that there's an opportunity to help that consciousness and that soul to then like level up. And so when my family cat Comet died, that's essentially what I did, in like holding that space and like holding him in my lap and talking to him and like looking up at him in like the ether and being like, hey, you are going to become like us. Like, you did an amazing job here as a cat. Like, you had so many amazing, like, human tendencies in the last part of your life. Like, it was amazing. I would watch him meditate with the sun, you know? I would just watch him
Yeah.
just, like, sit there with his eyes closed and just, like, bathe in sunlight. And so, I think when we can shift our perspective on death, um, you know, starting with an animal in our life, that we can see that their return to this like invisible eternal realm, that the best thing that we can do is to witness their transition and to recognize that they're there, because they're going to hear us and they're going to have an even greater comprehension of understanding us. And for us to be like, you're ready, whether you become another animal, or, you know, whether you know, become a dog or a cat or a bird in someone else's house, or you become a human, I just want you to know that you're ready to go where you go, and we love you, and we're gonna like do a ceremony with your body, and we're gonna put you in a good place, and you don't have to worry about that, right? And and that's why I was like, it was so interesting for me to have that dream of like finding my cat in my parents' closet, and, you know, kind of finalizing that step of like helping him transition. Because then that's going to be useful in the event of like a loved one who dies in our life, who's like, you know, a sister or brother or parent or something, right? That
Right.
then the service that that animal has is in a much greater picture, right? Of like even preparing us for something that will even cause even more like potential turmoil and grief and sadness, just because of our level of attachment, right? So that's where I recognize that like my family cat had a much greater purpose than I even knew, back when I first got him when I was like 4 years old, right? When you're just a kid and you're like, sweet, we got a cat, you know? And then me as like a, you know, 22-year-old or 23-year-old being like, oh my God, I never even realized or thought that like he would help me with my overcoming like this like fear of death, and being able to watch this like beautiful creature transition and then communicate to me. So that was really special and really beautiful.
I I love that you share that, because I mean, most of us don't outlive our pets, so we get to have that opportunity to have that experience. And I think that we don't always, we haven't quite got there yet. We don't quite understand. I say we as like the collective.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's one thing I do feel called to do, that the animals are guiding me, is to like start to facilitate that more and more. I have done a lot of those sessions where they, you know, and even after, but I've been present for many people, many animals transition. And it can be deeply, the thing is about honoring them, and yes, a lot of them when they're dying, and you know, everyone can do what they want to do. I have zero judgment about however you decide your animal is going to transition, but you know, there is suffering being released when when they're transitioning, when they're dying. So it isn't always going to from the humanness look or feel so beautiful. But when I look at it spiritually, and I look at it through their experience, and what they show me is, it actually is very sacred and beautiful, and your love and your presence there, and that acceptance and that release is really helpful for them and important for them, and to have that field of support, and it's almost like they're releasing what they need to release before they leave, so they don't take it with them. Does that make sense? That's
Yeah.
what I see a lot. And so I do honor people that are, I get it that you're like, I don't want my animal to suffer, so I'm just going to put them down. Um, Understandable. Um, but there is a purpose to that also. And um, that's something I've had a deeper understanding of that I didn't really understand before. So if people are open to, I try to give that information and, my own understanding of it and let people make their own decision. But the MO is to, euthanize the animal before the suffering gets too bad. That's just how we've done it forever and ever and ever. And it's, the doctors, that's what they tell you to do. And it's a quality of life thing. And it's just very interesting. So I think that sometimes, that can be supportive, and it's also whatever deal you and that soul have made. But I've seen that it can be really beneficial if you just show up to be in love and service and hold their hand and be there for them and tell them that it's okay and that they can go and they can leave all that, release all that stuff before they leave, and giving them that opportunity. When they leave, then they have a different experience and a different opportunity to go into their next life. That's what I've seen in that. So it kind of ties into what you were talking about. And I love that you brought forward that, because this can happen too, even after they're gone, right? Or however we're saying that, after they've left the physical body, you can still help them to do that. And it's a process. And yeah, I think it can be really sacred and beautiful. And that's a really beautiful opportunity. Not so many animals in the wild get to die of old age, or, get to have that experience. A lot of them become food, or,
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing, being human, and especially in the state of the world that we're in now, with how modern it is, and the however many generations of domestication that's occurred, for us to have this belief and this like experience that's normalized of just like having pets, right? And what it's taken for cats and dogs to go from a wild state to a domesticated state, and ultimately what that means, right? And that's where I thought it was interesting reading The Law of One and hearing this like channeled work of Ra talking about the purpose of that, and how it all ties into the evolution of consciousness and the transition from one density to another, and just like how for us humans, adopting a spiritual practice and doing spiritual work is coming in contact with like the next density for ourselves. And that like it's this like funny way to think of, our higher self in this next realm is like domesticating us into that next realm, and like we're the pet, right? But we just don't see like our like master, like we don't see like the owner of us. And so I like to try to keep that in mind when I'm interacting with my dog Rupert, that like there is a level of it that I'm like, I am treating him like a human too. That like there's this like preparation that's going on so that he can get a sense of, what it would be like to be a human. And that's why like I'll joke around with him. And so when he like jumps up on me, I'll like keep him up longer than he wants. He'll like try to like struggle out. I'll be like, no, this is what it's like to stand on your legs and be a human. Come on, stand up with me. And he just is like, no. And he like runs away. Yeah. So yeah, it's really, it's really special. And I feel really grateful to have had the experiences that I've had with like my cat Comet and my cat Bodhi, and now with Rupert. Um, Maybe have you ever had an experience where the animal maybe didn't like something that the owner was doing, or maybe had some like wisdom or guidance for the person that you were working with? Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Um,
Yeah. Well, especially with when there's more than one animal, when there's like the disharmony in that, or for cats, for example, a lot of them, there's some cats that really want a place to be up, and there's some cats that go hide under things. So they'll make requests for more places where they can perch up, for, for like safe places, or that they need their own time away from the other animals or the kids or the whatever, or that they would like to eat different kinds of food. I did this one reading with this woman. She had two dogs, and they were very specific about what they wanted to eat. And then I was getting all this information about stuff they were deficient in, like that they needed in their physical bodies. And I don't know, I just share the information, right? And so that she sent me an email a few hours after and was like, oh my gosh, I looked up all these foods, and they're all foods that are like rich in all the things that they were deficient in, that they needed in their diet. And I was like, oh, they're so smart. I don't need to know anything. Like, I really don't. And excuse me. Yeah. Or just that they also, things that they want to have about the human experience, like you were saying. This one dog who was getting older, and he was going to transition soon, so that's why we're having this session, so she could see like what he needs to do or want or connect to before he goes. And one of the things he said is that he wanted to try lemonade. And like, I almost didn't say it out loud because it just felt so ridiculous to say, because I was like, but that's where I just had to trust it, right? And like get out of my own ego and be like, it doesn't really matter what you think about it, just say it. And like, if she connects to it, fine. If she doesn't, move on. So and she was like, she just got teary. Actually, she almost just burst into tears, because she was like, I drink lemonade every single day. And I could see him in my spiritual eye under this glass table, like looking up at this glass of lemonade. And I was like, well, he wants to try lemonade before, he transitions. She gave it to him. I guess he didn't really want it, but it was that connection of that like time of like something she loved and enjoyed so much, and him wanting to like be a part of that before he transitioned and have that experience. And I thought that that was really beautiful and very cool. um yeah, there's different colors that they like, which is funny because in our human mind, my human mind, I'm like, I don't think animals see colors in the same way. I don't even think we all see colors in the same way, but it's that frequency. It's just whatever they like, whatever they want to connect to. So they make requests for different things. Yeah, one dog was telling me something. Um, it wasn't direct, but it got there, where it actually ends up that the vet was giving them the wrong medicine, and it was actually poisoning them. And that's why they were on their deathbed, which was what we were trying to help. And the dog lives, still alive now, but was really not going to make it. They were very worried about this poor little, this little guy and a little girl. And yeah, I was guided to do some practices between the soul of the vet and the dog, and there was these other things to look at, and there was all this information that was being given. It was kind of this like trail map to actually opening up that opportunity for them to discover that actually they were poisoning this dog. Now, obviously not on purpose, but somehow that was in the karma, right, of that situation and what was happening. And so yeah, they were able to stop, and we did lots of blessings and lots of things, and the dog ended up living, which was beautiful.
Wow. That is like, that's actually really incredible. And that to me speaks to, I don't want to say ignorance, but maybe a slight naivety within kind of like a like strict materialistic scientific methodology on how to treat an illness, right? Where it's just like so formulaic. It's like, oh, your dog has this, then we give him this, right? And if that doesn't work, then we give him this. And if that doesn't work, then we got to operate or something, right? And so to, have the availability and the opportunity to have someone like you to come in and be like, you know what? Your dog is so much more intelligent than you think, and it knows something that none of you know, because it's experiencing
Yeah.
something that you're not willing to really be open to. And there's, fortunately, you're able to pick up on that communication to have the animal be like, look, whatever they're giving to me is making me worse and they need to stop. And I don't know how to tell them because they don't understand me. And, I've been trying to tell them for so long and I'm pretty much going to die. And that I think is really beautiful, to be able to have like not only the owner respect that and cooperate with that, but then also
Oh
the
yeah.
vet to be like, okay, maybe we'll do another diagnostic and see what is happening, and then just to find like, oh my god, like whatever it is that's poisoning them, if it's like disrupting like their bladder or their kidneys or their organs in some way or whatever, their blood, that suddenly they're like, oh, if you didn't communicate this to, the owners of the dog, like we never would have picked this up. And, we have to now look at maybe not even using this medication because, they could be poisoning all sorts of animals without even knowing it, right? So
Yeah, I mean, vet medicine, animal medicine is just um I honor all the vets, really honestly with my heart, but it's newish medicine, and it's so there's so many different species and so many different things. And I think there's a tendency to treat it like we do, human Western medicine. Yeah, and the thing that really touched me about that was not only was it revealing that information, but I honestly believe this with all of my heart, that information wouldn't have even been accessible. It would have been looked over if we hadn't been doing the work to clear whatever blockages was stopping that from being realized.
yeah,
Like that was actually the thing that the dog was communicating, was like, we got to clear this so that they can know how to help me. And, I wasn't really sure what that meant, but we did it, and it did. And they realized it. And that was happening. The dog's, all the organs were failing. I mean, this dog was, it was a real intense thing. And so that's where the tools as a practitioner can be really amazing too, is, helping them to so we can help our animals to self clear also, because they're also taking on all this stuff from us, which is another service they offer. It's a whole nother layer of like them, right, ascending into what they're going to do, is like really having that experience and taking on that stuff. Like, I know if my dog is acting a certain way, like anxious, I need to like really tune into what's happening for me in my emotional body, and what the anxiety level is, like where that frequency is, and really release it. And then he's better. So he's just showing me like, hey, this is what's happening in our field. This is what's going on. Another thing is, there was this cat who was really going through a lot. Actually, she was only 3 years old. She was being fostered, and she all of a sudden just started throwing up and never stopped. And she was in the animal hospital and had seen like 3 different specialists for like 11 days. and she was a foster cat. So they were saying, if she doesn't show improvement, we're just going to have to euthanize her because we don't have the resources to sustain this if she's not improving. So the foster person called me, and we did a bunch of work and a bunch of communication, and we did one big healing session, and the next day she got her feeding tube removed. Or no, she ate without throwing up for the first time in 11 days. They did a surgery. They did all these things to try to, is it a blockage? Is it this? Is it that? They did everything they could do. And she just told me exactly what it was. So I guided through some practices to help, that we could help her to self-clear. We had her participating on the soul level. We cleared and transformed the information. And then the next day she was able to eat and not throw up for the first time in, almost 2 weeks. And then we did another session. And then the next day she got her feeding tube removed and she got to go home. And a few months ago, I got a message that she was adopted.
Wow.
So now she gets to live a happy kitty life. And she had some things happening for her after that. And we just kept working with her. She had some digestive stuff and different things happening. But her life was saved, by her. She told me what she needed and what we needed to do. Animals who are lost will show me where they are, and people find them, and it's all they're doing. I'm really not doing anything but just showing up to receive it. And I had to really be pushed to do that. It was like so uncomfortable not to do it. That I just had to start doing it. And then once I realized, and it's been really helpful for me and my dog too, my friend, I sometimes have a harder time connecting to him. We are so connected, but when, because I'm in my human, like, this is how our relationship is, and this is how this is. And then when I'm trying to tap deeper into it, right? Sometimes I have a hard time really like waxing off that that mode and just like really allowing it to come through. But he's like helped me in so many ways. They just have so much information, and they will tell me how to help their human too. And that's really what they're even all about. It's like, they'll tell me they have back pain. They have, you need to help them. And I'm like, okay, do you have any pain in your back?
Yeah.
Do you mind if I offer you, and yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. That because I think the stigma around this can be like, oh, you're making this up, right? That it's like, it's not actually the animal doing anything. This is your business, and you're just doing these things to like comfort the human. And
gosh, I would really pick a much easier thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like the level of like strategic manipulation that's going to have to go on in order for that to be true. Right. And
yeah, I mean, I resisted doing this. I'll tell you, like, there could be a whole thing about that. Like, yeah. But some people, they're not going to believe it. It's not their thing. That's totally fine.
Yeah,
I don't need anyone else to believe it. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's kind of where we can end it here is what it means to be open to the intelligence of these beings, and these this intelligence that comes through that we call pets. And that you're right, like it's not your volition, it's not you like trying to make this stuff up. It is literally a channeling and a transference from these animals that want to communicate, and they're like, finally someone who gets it, let's do this, right? Like, and the fact that you've saved animals' lives is a testament to that. So, yeah, thank you for doing the work that you do, because, I'm sure there are many, many people who are grateful for what you've done, and even the vets that you've worked with that are like, you know what, like, there's something real here that we have to consider, and I'm sure that's why they call you up, and I'm sure that's why, weekly you have people coming to you to want to do this work, because there's a reality to it. It's not just, fantasy or imagination or fabrication.
No, it's not. But I honestly just feel really honored and grateful that I get to do this, because it's just a part of what I need to do, right? To connect to my next stage. So I know that I think it's a responsibility. And if I don't do it because someone's not going to believe it or whatever, then it's really painful. And even if I can just help one person out of the room of how many people are like, whatever, then yeah, that's also not up to me. That's also not my deal, right? So yeah, I feel really honored. I'm very grateful. I want to help every animal and human that I can. And it's really touched my heart. I had no idea when I started doing it what actual effect it was going to have, and what the road was going to look like, and that animals were going to tell me information that would save their lives, or find their home, back to their home, or be able to explain to their humans why they left the house, because they're on their journey and they need to do da 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 da, and they'll come back, and don't worry, or whatever it is. It's just every time I do a session, and it blows my mind just what comes through, because it's far beyond what I could think of. And that is just really the truth of it.
Amazing. Yeah, so thank you for coming on. If you can maybe just share with people where they can find you, website, social media, and I'll have links for all that stuff as well. I'll even make a little clip of our interview here that I can send to you and for people to see just on my social media. So yeah, where can people find you mainly?
Yeah, sure. And first, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for having me on, allowing me to share and connect to everybody. So if you want to connect further with me, or just check out what I'm up to, you can find me most of the ways. So you can find me on YouTube at Soul Light Pet Services with Katherine O'Shea. You can find me, I am on Facebook actually. Katherine O'Shea at Soul Light Pet, I think, is the Facebook. I go live on YouTube and Facebook every week, a couple times a week. I have the Pet Love Show, which is really cool. And often I'll have guests on there and do demos, and we do all kinds of communication. I'm also on TikTok very recently where I'm doing little reading videos. So you have the opportunity to send me a photo of your pet and get a little mini 3-minute reading. And that's at Soul Light Pet. And I'm on Instagram at Soul Light Pet. And yeah, soullightpetservices.org is my website. And that's where you can check out what the services I offer. I am doing lots of classes and different things coming up to help us connect to our animals and to heal from the loss of a pet, and to, kind of experience that differently. So I would love to connect to any of you and your animal companions.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for listening, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day and enjoy.